Hello everyone and welcome. We're very glad to have you here. If you enjoy deep dives into lore, mysteries, and hidden histories of the Lord of the Rings, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel and help us grow. We're still a small channel, and your support truly makes a difference. Today's video is a documentary-style analysis focused on the Istari, the wizards of Middle-earth, including Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, and the mysterious Blue Wizards, exploring who they really were and why they were sent. The Istari, known in Quenya as the Heron Istarian, or the Order of Wizards, were formed in Valinor when the Valar perceived the first signs that Sauron's shadow was once again stirring in Middle-earth. Much of what we know about their origins comes from unfinished tales, where the story of their choosing is laid out in careful detail. Manwë, king of the Valar, called a council to decide how the threat of Sauron should be opposed, and it was determined that emissaries would be sent rather than armies of open power. At first, 3 Maiar were chosen. All selected one of his own people, Carumo, who was renowned for his knowledge and skill. Orm chose the Maya Alatar, and Manwë himself asked Aloran to be the third. Aloran, however, was reluctant. He feared Sauron, and doubted his own strength. Manwë insisted that this very humility was the reason he must go, for those who feared domination were least likely to seek it. Yet the number did not remain 3. Alatar took with him his friend Palando, and Yavanna, the Vala of all growing things, requested that Carumo also bring Iwendel, a Maya deeply attuned to nature. Thus 5 Maiar were chosen to become the Istari and undertake the long journey to Middle-earth. By the Council of Eru, these emissaries were sent not in forms of glory, but clothed in the bodies of men. They were real and physical, subject to hunger, weariness, fear, pain, and despair. Though their spirits were immortal, their bodies could be slain, and they were bound to act through patience, guidance, and labor across many years. This choice was deliberate, meant to amend the earlier errors of the Valar, who had once tried to guard the Eldar through open power and visible majesty. The Istari were forbidden to reveal themselves in splendor or to rule elves and men by force. Instead, they were to advise, encourage, and unite the free peoples in love and understanding, so that Sauron's influence would be resisted not by domination, but by shared will and resolve. Although it is commonly stated that the Istari arrived in Middle-earth around the year 1000 of the Third Age, later writings indicate that this was not true for all of them. The Blue Wizards, Alatar and Palando, came much earlier. They are said to have arrived around the year 1600 of the Second Age, at the same time that Glorfindel returned to Middle-earth. Their paths soon led them far into the east, and from that point onward their fates became uncertain, spoken of only in rumor and speculation. Carumo, Iwendel, and Aloran arrived much later, landing at the Grey Havens in the year 1000 of the Third Age. There, they were welcomed by Círdan the Shipwright. Though Carumo was regarded as the head of their order and would later be known as Saruman, it was Aloran who arrived last. He appeared both the oldest and the least imposing among them. Yet Círdan perceived his true nature, and in a quiet and momentous act, he entrusted Aloran with Narya, the Ring of Fire. As the Istari traveled among elves and men, they appeared as elderly figures, wise but physically frail. They were subject to hunger, pain, and exhaustion, and their bodies could be slain, even though their spirits remained immortal. This limitation is shown clearly in the deaths of Gandalf the Grey, in his battle with the Balrog, and Saruman at the hands of Grima Wormtongue. These constraints were placed upon the Istari so that they would guide the free peoples rather than dominate them. Unlike Sauron, who sought control through force, Unfinished Tales tells us that once embodied, the Istari had to relearn much through slow experience. Though they knew their origin, the memory of the Blessed Realm grew distant, like a fading vision. Through long years of hardship, exile, and resistance to Sauron's malice, they endured, so that they might help correct the evils of the age. Few in Middle-earth knew the true nature of the Istari. Most believed them to be simply wise men, learned in lore through long study. Only Círdan, Elrond, and Galadriel knew that they had come from beyond the sea, sent by the Lords of the West to oppose Sauron's return. For a long time, the Istari wandered openly among elves and men, and they also held converse with beasts and birds. Though they appeared aged, they were vigorous and changed little over the years, aging only slowly despite the heavy burdens laid upon them. They possessed great wisdom and many powers of mind and hand, though these powers were veiled and restrained. Tolkien's portrayal of magic, including that of the Istari, is deliberately mysterious, without rigid rules, what many would call a soft magic system. Radagast the Brown, known also as Iwendel, cared deeply for the animals and growing things of Middle-earth, reflecting his service to Yavanna. His friendship with Gwaihir the Windlord proved crucial, for it was Radagast who asked the Great Eagle to bring news to Isengard, leading to Gandalf's escape from Orthanc. Saruman too made use of animals, particularly the Crebain, great black birds from Dunland and Fangorn Forest, which he employed as spies against the Fellowship. Radagast is also described as a master of shapes and changes of hue. While this may seem symbolic, Tolkien uses similar language when describing the Valar themselves, who could clothe their being in form and color. Whether Radagast possessed the ability to transform himself or merely create illusions is never made clear, but the suggestion remains intriguing. Gandalf's powers are shown more directly. He drove off the Nazgul at Weathertop with fire and light, aided Elrond in unleashing the flood of the Bruinen, and placed a powerful shutting spell upon the door of the Chamber of Mazarbul, which the Balrog itself was forced to answer. On the bridge of Khazad-dûm, Gandalf shattered stone with word and staff, bringing the bridge down beneath the Balrog. His command of fire appears again when the Fellowship is attacked by wargs before reaching Moria, as he hurls flames with deadly precision. This affinity may be enhanced by his possession of Narya, the Ring of Fire. Gandalf also demonstrates a fearsome presence when he confronts Bilbo in Bag End, growing tall and menacing, his shadow filling the room. Beyond this, Gandalf shows signs of telepathy and foresight. He speaks to Frodo in Rivendell while the Hobbit lies unconscious, later guides him at Amon Hen when Frodo wears the ring, and implies that he contested the will of Sauron across vast distance. These moments reveal the deep restrained power that defined the Istari's true purpose. Saruman's greatest power was not displayed through obvious spells, but through his voice. When he focused his will through speech, his words could weigh heavily on the hearts of those who listen, planting doubt, fear, or obedience. For some, the effect faded when his voice fell silent. For others, it lingered, shaping thought and loyalty long after. Through this power, Saruman deceived many, even convincing enemies that he possessed no knowledge of the One Ring or the Shire, sending the Nazgul searching elsewhere. As a Maya of all, Saruman also possessed a strong talent for craft and creation. He devised the blasting fire used by the Uruk-hai at Helm's Deep, a weapon of destruction previously unseen in Middle-earth. Though he did not invent the Uruk-hai themselves, he bred and multiplied them in the pits of Isengard, shaping them into a force of speed and endurance. His study of the rings of power led him to attempt the creation of his own ring, though its strength was far inferior, for only Sauron truly knew the deepest secrets of such craft. Saruman could also drive his servants beyond their natural limits, urging orcs to unnatural speed and endurance across vast distances, as seen when Merry and Pippin were carried from Parth Galen. Within his own domain, his power pressed against those who opposed him, bearing down upon Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli as they pursued his captives. Gandalf, meanwhile, revealed further depths of power after his return. In Minas Tirith, he disarmed Denethor with a mere gesture, breaking the steward's will without striking him. Yet the clearest display came at Orthanc, when Saruman confronted Gandalf, Théoden, Aragorn, and their companions. With commanding authority, Gandalf summoned Saruman back against his will, stripped him of rank, and cast him from the order. Declaring himself Gandalf the White, he shattered Saruman's staff with a word, breaking both symbol and power. In that moment, the fate of the Istari was laid bare. Beings of immense power, sent not to rule but to guide. In their stories we see faith upheld, duty betrayed, and the heavy cost of straying from the path they were sworn to follow. While much about the Istari remains veiled, Tolkien leaves enough clues to reveal their deeper purpose and the consequences of their choices. They were immensely powerful beings, yet bound by strict limits, sent not to dominate Middle-earth but to inspire its peoples to resist Sauron through unity and resolve. Their strength lay not in overwhelming force, but in wisdom, endurance, and the ability to kindle hope in others. In Gandalf we see the path of faithfulness. Though he fell in the depths of Khazad-dûm, he returned transformed, his mission renewed rather than abandoned. As Gandalf the White, he embodied the ideal purpose of the Istari, guiding without ruling and standing against despair when the world seemed closest to ruin. His restraint was not weakness, but the very reason his influence endured. Saruman represents the opposite fate. Once the greatest of the order, his pride led him to believe that knowledge and power entitled him to command. In seeking to rival Sauron, he fell into the same trap, becoming a mirror of the evil he was meant to oppose. His downfall serves as a warning that even the wisest can stray when they abandon humility and duty. Radagast stands apart from both paths. He did not betray his mission, yet neither did he fully embrace it. His love for the natural world drew him away from the central struggle, leaving his ultimate fate uncertain. As for Alatar and Palando, the blue wizards, their story fades into mystery, hinting that some paths of the Istari may have led far from the lands and tales we know. Together, the Istari embody choice itself. They show that power alone does not determine fate, but how that power is used, restrained, or abandoned. Through them, Tolkien explores loyalty, corruption, and quiet perseverance, reminding us that even in a world shaped by great forces, the smallest decisions can echo across ages.